What a Guan! Now, What a Guan is CVMTV's new Vox Pop program, Vibes Yes Vox Pop program. Hey Jamaica, you're watching What a Guan!
What a Guan!
Coming to you from Montego Bay.
Hello, my people.
What a Guan is back. The People's Program is back in full force on CVMTV.
What a Guan! That a Guan! Cross!
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winfred Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVMTV.
So much more than entertainment.
I'm Curlin Brown. Let's continue to inspire Jamaica. And of course, where else will you see it? CVMTV, of course.
Good evening. Tonight on Lead Story, institutional accountability and public trust. From a sudden and traumatic spike in violence in Manchester, including the killing of a 4-year-old child, to serious questions about how Jamaica oversees its most powerful crime-fighting units. We'll also take a look at where governance is working, with fewer fire-related deaths in 2025, and what recovery really means for St. Elizabeth, now that electricity has been restored after months of disruption. This is Lead Story. So we're certainly looking first at what has taken place in Manchester with horrific news that we are now starting the month of February, not with the kind of quiet news that allowed us to end the year of 2025 in Manchester, but instead with horrific news. Manchester has entered 2026 after one of its quietest years in recent memory. But in a matter of days, that calm has been shattered. 3 shooting incidents have taken place, with 4 adults dead last week, starting off the month of February. And now, a 4-year-old child killed, a loss that has shocked the parish and the country. The parish's segments are still under lockdown, and residents are asking a simple question. What changed? What happens? And what next? Speaking with me is Member of Parliament for Manchester, Michael Phillips. Michael Phillips, thanks so much for joining us inside Lead Story.
Thanks for having me.
As Member of Parliament for Northwest Manchester, you are watching what's going on in the parish. It's been a relatively stable year in 2025. From your vantage point, what has shifted that has led us now to those 3 shooting incidents and 4 deaths, and now this horrific shooting of a 4-year-old with her being killed and now her father being injured as well?
Manchester is generally a quiet parish. We have seen the upsurge in violent crimes from time to time, depending on what happens in other parishes. I remember the time when there was a displacement of the scamming operations in St. James, and you would see migration of others coming to the parish of Manchester. We saw an uptick in crime, and I know that the police have been on top of what is happening in the parish right now. I mean, including in my own constituency, I've been in dialogue with the senior superintendent in charge of the parish We have a curfew for the last about 5 weeks now in the Comfort Hall, Evergreen, Oxford area. But I know the police has been stretched. They have been stretched. I know I've always asked for more resources for the police in Manchester, not because we are generally quiet, that we need to ignore what may happen. And what we've been seeing is that there are a lot of persons coming from other parishes that have been damaged by Hurricane Melissa and have been relocating to Manchester. Hence, we're seeing more break-ins, we're seeing more violent crimes happening in the parish. It is just for the additional resources so that the police themselves in the parish are able to manage the influx of others coming into the parish because of displacement in their own after Hurricane Melissa.
That is so important for us to remember that criminals were also impacted by Hurricane Melissa. Does that mean that you would have seen what you consider to be an influx of persons from places like St. James or St. Elizabeth, and that you there in Manchester, given your quiet and sleepy history, might have left the gates open to these people now deciding to take over the parish?
Well, I mean, you have persons who have families who have displaced, who have taken them in, and you have others who are now renting properties in Manchester. And you have to remember, for those criminals who would do their shop break-ins, there's not many shops for them to pounce on in St. Elizabeth or Westmoreland. So, they go to other parishes, other places to perform their criminal activities. So it is in an instance like this. It is I know that the police and their intelligence arm have been working. As I said, I have been in dialogue with the senior SOOP with my own issues in my own constituency. We have seen persons in some of the deep rural communities, other persons coming from outside or persons bringing their friends to come and stay with them. And some of these persons are of questionable character. So it is just for the community themselves that they have a responsibility, the communities themselves, to report anything that they see that is untoward, and taking responsibility for their own community. Many times we turn a blind eye to other persons coming to stay, the old-time rural communities. If a strange person come in, the whole community would have to know who this person is. Nowadays, we take it as just a given, and some of these persons come with wrong intentions.
With those wrong intentions that you're seeing, though, Michael Phillips, you're also seeing what is often the tipping point for persons. The death of a child, death of a 4-year-old child yesterday, and now her father also seriously injured, is often where people will say enough is enough. This following a week where we had 3 incidents where individuals were shot and killed, leading to 4 deaths in the parish. We had with us Superintendent Carey Duncan inside the show ahead of the Manchester Police, saying to us the police were on the ground. This is something that they were keeping their eyes on, and they were putting boots on the ground in order to deal with this. But with what you're seeing right now, what specific things have been done to fast track that, especially now with this horrific death yesterday?
Well, I'm sure the SOOP won't say it, but I mean, we have always had a shortage of police vehicles in the parish of Manchester. We, fortunately, unlike other parishes, we have no zozos. We have, we may have a curfew from time to time, but I have always said that we shouldn't wait until we reach to this tipping point for us to do what is necessary to mitigate what is possible to happen. And I think that we have treated it in that way too long in the parish of Man. So we don't get the same amount of resources as another community in St. James that is having challenges.
But you wouldn't have needed that, Mikel Phillips, to be very fair.
But truth be told, as I said before, we have had in the parish of Manchester, which are known as hotspots. But, just a general walkthrough with the police is not enough. Why not put in the same interventions in these communities, knowing that they have the potential to reach that tipping point?
So are you calling then for a ZOSO? Are you calling for these sorts of more comprehensive policing strategies?
Needs to be a ZOSO, but need to put in those community interventions. We don't really need ZOSOs to put in those community interventions. Yeah, so why not treat them in the same way and putting in the community interventions, infrastructure in some ways, and sending in the various agencies in dealing with the similar things that you would do with the ZOSOs, in training, providing additional resources for training for the young people, knowing that these communities are hotspot in Manchester. When we have 2 murders, it is a big deal in the parish of Manchester, in some of these communities. Why wait until we know that we reach to the tipping point? Then we're saying that we should have done these things when we know that they have been there for quite a while. So I'm saying that we know these hotspots. Let us go in now with these community interventions so that they don't get to the point of being where we have to bring in a ZOSO. All
right. So what do you want to see then when we talk about safety? Can't just mean more checkpoints. What does safety look like in practice this week in terms of police visibility, response times, and perhaps even witness protection?
Additional and continuous police presence, giving more resources to the police. If it has to do with personnel too, let us add those personnels. Let us look at how it is that we can go into these communities, not for the immediate aftermath, the post, but how it is that we can do a month, 2 months, 3 months, a year, or 2 years of intervention in these communities that we know are hotspots in the parish of Manchester. And I think that all of us as members of Parliament in the past have, and I'm sure now, have always come together in ensuring the safety of the citizens in the parish of Manchester. And the police has always had an open door policy for us to dealing with these matters. So it is just for us to get ahead of what may come in 2026 if we have started off and trying to see how best we can mitigate any further bloodshed in the parish of Manchester.
We have a few moments, Mikel Phillips. Talk to your constituents and those who live in Manchester, Greater Manchester as well. They must be very frightened at this time. What do you want to say to them?
It's a frightening time overall, even though we saw a reduction in crime in the parish of Manchester last year and nationally, which is everybody should celebrate, but we have to be our brother's keeper. We have seen a lot of persons coming from other places to settle in the parish. But if it is that we see something that is not unsettling in our communities, if it is that you can't depend on the police, or you think you can't on your political representative, find a pastor. You can find someone who can help to report what is happening. We have seen an uptick in break-ins. We have always been our brother's keeper. And I think that we need to get back to basic in each one look after the other.
I think that's going to be very powerful for those who are watching from Manchester, Mikel Phillips, as they are also dealing with the concerns around this violent start to the month of February. Mikel Phillips, Member of Parliament for Northwestern Manchester, thank you so much for joining us inside Lead Story. We're going to take a break inside the show and come back to you because another big story. The Jamaica Constabulary Force has taken the decision to make more changes at CTOC. This time, perhaps even disbanding it. We'll talk about what that looks like now with former Commissioner of Police, Rear Admiral Harley Lewin.
into the issues. We'll take you beneath the surface.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Orville Higgins and it's another edition of Fan Central.
Talking to the people at the heart of the top sporting stories. Hear from your favorite sportsmen and women and the administrators who work tirelessly to make it all happen. It's live sports talk.
I've written an entire article.
Yes.
Looking at all the major issues every Tuesday at 9 p.m. It's Fan Central.
Jamaica's unemployment rate has fallen to 3.3%, down from 13.2% in 2016. Our government's continued focus on job creation is delivering real results. We are building Jamaica. The time by the Office of the Prime Minister is...
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winfred Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVMTV.
So much more than entertainment.
Welcome to What a Guan. Now, What a Guan is CVMTV's new Vox Pop program, Vibes Yes Vox Pop program. Hey Jamaica, you're watching What a Guan.
What a Guan.
Coming to you from Montego Bay.
Hello, my people.
What a Guan is back. The People's Program is back in full force on CVMTV.
What a Guan! That a Guan! Cross!
Every dream conquered is another dream gained. I land and I fly again like a jet plane. Headed straight in your direction. 'Cause I'm wiser, one step closer. I'm winning 'cause I work so hard. And the music keeps on playing, and the people them I say we are my show tonight. Oh, what a feeling! Don't stop dreaming. Keep on believing in the power of the feeling. Whatever you want, take a chance. Song in your heart, step in your dance. You got a spark, don't put it down. Shine your lights
Operational success is nothing without institutional integrity. While we focused on the front line in Manchester, a deeper crisis is simmering within our elite units. The recent controversies surrounding CTOC, the Counterterrorism and Organized Crime Investigations Division, have raised a fundamental question. Who guards the guardians? When units designed to take down the most sophisticated criminals face internal integrity tests, public trust hangs by a thread. To discuss whether our oversight mechanisms are fit for purpose, we're joined by former Commissioner of Police, Rear Admiral Hadley Lewin. Rear Admiral Lewin, thanks so much for joining us inside Lead Story.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us. Let me give everybody listening an overview, because CTOC, as Jamaicans know it, it seems no longer exists in its previous form. It's been dismantled and reorganized into a new structure called the Specialized Investigation Branch. And that was announced by the Jamaica Constabulary Forces High Command yesterday, February 8. Help us understand, Rear Admiral Lewin, when we see something like this, when we are dealing with this, elite units like CTOC require a degree of autonomy to be effective. But has that autonomy come at the cost of accountability? Did we create a state within a state?
No, look, the move that the commissioner has made in amalgamating the investigative arms of the force makes every sense. The issue, of course, is that this is coming at a time when questions have been raised because of an incident in one of those arms, what you call the elite arms. And this is one of the problems we have, you know, when we label units elite, etc., etc. Because the truth of the matter is, I don't see anybody more elite or anything than any other unit. That policeman on the beat is a very critical man in the law enforcement architecture. We had an elite unit known as a special branch that preceded independence. They were prima donnas. They were everything. I disbanded them overnight. So what I do not know, because I have no inside information, is whether this move, which is a good move, was contemplated prior to these discoveries at CTOC and is merely implemented, or it triggered it. But because this move was made so quickly, I have a feeling, just a strong feeling, that there was some pre-planning that this should have happened. And I can tell you in a minute why it makes sense, if you wish.
Well, I certainly do want to have a discussion with you about whether it makes sense and why you believe that it is something that makes sense. But let's take a look at CTOC first, because CTOC was the successor to two organizations that had been amalgamated. That's the Flying Squad and the Organized Crime Investigation Division, OCID, that at the time had to be reorganized, dismantled, put into CTOC now. And we had CTOC with a mandate to tackle organized and transnational crime, financial and cyber crime, human trafficking, gang leadership structures, and high-risk, high-value investigations. That's a lot of responsibility to put on this grouping. Did they get more latitude, you felt, than other branches of the Jamaica Constabulary Force, even though you believe the beat cop was as elite as those within CTOC?
You know, again, we're going back to the word elite, and I consider when we have the kind of force that we want, every policeman ought to be elite, right? The fact of the matter is, there has to be changes from time to time as the landscape and the threat changes. Again, I come back to the point, I don't know whether this was something contemplated and it's just being put into effect because of this has happened now, or whatever it is. But criminality is interconnected, all its strands of criminality. It's interrelated, it is sophisticated. And what we have done, or what the commissioner has done, is that he has fused the investigative arms. So what you get out of this one unit under one command is a fusion center. So we don't have silos. One group investigating gun crimes, one investigating drugs, when in fact drugs and guns are interrelated. You see, and then you have competition between agencies and we miss things. So, you know, a lot of questions naturally are being asked. But I'm looking at the outcome. Is it good or is it bad?
All right.
In terms of the new formation.
Let's put in context then how we got here, and then I'll ask you about the outcome, because we're now at a situation where there was a drug scandal at CTOC, a drug scandal that began in early 2026 and deepened significantly in the following weeks. On January 8, Detective Inspector Martin Walker, a long-serving member of CTOC, was intercepted with 5.8 kilograms of cocaine, roughly at the value of 3.5 million Jamaican dollars. He's since been charged. After that, there was an audit of CTOC, took a look at their storage units and saw 2 additional parcels of cocaine there. And when Walker had been held by the police, he reportedly told fellow officers the car can't search, warning that if they proceeded, too much people are going to expose, raising and fueling suspicions that there's a wider ring of corruption within that branch. Is that then the impetus for what we're seeing now, or did you believe that this only hastened it, but some of this was already coming?
It could be one or the other, but let me make a case, or make a point, that every police and law enforcement agency worldwide have had their low moments when some of their officers do things they shouldn't do. Now, when I look at the Jamaica Constabulary Force, I look at 4 types of policemen. Number one, that honest, hard-working professional who's the kind of policeman we want. Secondly, we have the policemen who I say are retired on the job. They are just ambling on. Thirdly, you have the entrepreneurial policeman who I describe, who uses the police force as his hobby. And then the fourth one, the corrupt, who is actively working against, number one, the hard-working, honest, professional police officers. The question that we must face is, what are the mechanisms we have in place to discover and to weed out? And that, I think, is the important question, because these things are going to happen. People will yield to temptation. It has happened before, it will happen again. Do you remember the policeman leaving a police arms store with 22 weapons? Not too long ago.
So these are then things, they're absolutely then things that as we remember them coming out with contraband there, that was also something coming out from the Jamaica Constabulary Force that we have to look at. Talk about internal accountability then, looking at international best practices. Where did our internal oversight fail? And should the Commissioner of Police have had a more direct integrity audit of these specialized units and perhaps even before this?
I can't speak to the details of what happened, but let me say this. One of the most important things we can do, just like law enforcement investigators, look at targets, look at lifestyle as a matter of triggering an investigation. Every honest, hard-working police officer must see themselves as part of the integrity system. You must. And where you have suspicions, bring them forward so they can be properly interrogated, so you will head off things like what just happened. Because I'm on record as saying that one of the most powerful individual in Jamaica is a police constable. Not the rank constable, I mean one with the powers of a constable. And one of the most dangerous is a corrupt constable. Somebody with the powers of a police who's corrupt. So whatever is put in place has to be robust, and what happens after discovery has to be quick and sure. So you may want to say, what is IPRO? IPRO is the investigating arm of the force, and how that works. I cannot give you any details. I'm no longer on the inside.
Well, it's certainly, though, going to be very important for us in the coming days and weeks to figure out what exactly has gone on as the Jamaica Constabulary Force shares with the nation where we are right now. But given the announcement yesterday, February 8th, that it has now created the Specialized Investigation Branch, the SIB, do you see then this consolidation into the single command structure, but the removal of the Firearms and Narcotics Investigations Division from CTOC and not replaced under the SIB, a hampering to this sort of one-stop shop that you spoke of earlier, a single place to deal with these more complex crimes?
I'm not overly sure about the details of the changes, but what I do understand in a general sense is that all the investigative have now come under one special investigative branch, which, as I outlined before, makes sense. Let me tell you, one of the things that's very important, because one of the things I find in this country, when we make decisions, we take formations and so on, we think it's a come down and a failure to keep things going when they're not working. We have to have the courage to change them, and change them radically. If they're not working, systems and so on must work for us. We don't work for systems.
And so this is a change then that you see being beneficial to the country as we make this change from CTOC to the SIB, Special Investigation Branch of the Jamaica Constabulary Force. We'll certainly have more conversations about this, Rear Admiral Hartley Lewin, as you give us your insight into what we're seeing at the Jamaica Constabulary Force, a change for the better of Jamaica. Thanks so much for joining us inside Lead Story.
of course, time will tell.
Of course, time will tell indeed. And that's certainly something that we'll be watching and keeping you up to date on here inside the show. We'll take a break and come back to you because rough conversations, tough conversations, but good news because the fire department has now told us that we ended 2025 with less fire-related deaths. What a blessing indeed. We'll talk about that next here inside Lead Story.
Welcome to What a Guan. Now, What a Guan is CVMTV's new Vox Pop program, Vibes Yes Vox Pop program. Hey Jamaica, you're watching What a Guan.
What a Guan.
Coming to you from Montego Bay.
Hello, my people.
What a Guan is back. The People's Program is back in full force on CVMTV.
What a Guan. That a Guan. Cross.
Jamaica, make we do the right thing. Make we live good today for a better tomorrow. Talk it out. Don't fight it out. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6:30.
Every dream conquered is another dream gained. I land and I fly again like a jet plane. Headed straight in your direction. 'Cause I'm wiser, one step closer. I'm winning 'cause I work so hard. And the music keeps on playing. And the people them I say we are my show tonight. Oh, what a feeling. Don't stop dreaming. Keep on believing in the power of the feeling. Whatever you want, take a chance. Song in your heart, step in your dance. You got a spark, don't put it down. Shine your lights on.
Amid tonight's tough conversations, there's also evidence that institutional reform can change lives. In 2025, Jamaica recorded a significant decline in fire-related deaths, and that's amazing news that we wanted to bring to you. So joining me to talk about that is Commissioner Stuart Beckford of the Jamaica Fire Brigade. Commissioner Beckford, thanks so much for joining us inside Lead Story.
Thank you, Jodi, to you and your team, and thanks for having us. I'm indeed delighted to be here.
We have to celebrate the good news, Commissioner. When people want to say, Fire Brigade not doing this and that, we're fine, you know. So we make sure that we're fine when we have good news as well. Commissioner, the numbers show a clear reduction in fire-related deaths last year. What changed and why did it work?
Well, you know, we have been at it for the last 5 years in terms of our public education campaign. We have been, pounding the pavement, so to speak, going into communities. And I think the game changer for us is really, getting the data together, sitting down as a group and analyzing that data to see where the trends are. And of course, that would have helped us to identify the high-risk communities. And we would have targeted those high-risk communities instead of using what I would call a scattershot approach that we try to do too many communities at the same time, and so we were not as effective as we would have wanted to be. So I think that has changed, and that has resulted, I strongly believe, in the numbers that you are seeing in terms of fire-related deaths. We are indeed buoyed by these numbers, and we are confident that this trend can continue for the foreseeable future, because we believe, Jodi and your viewers, that fire-related deaths in the main are preventable. What we see happening a lot of times in terms of persons end up dying in a fire is because of human error. And so for us to have a meaningful impact on these fire-related deaths, we have to arm persons with the knowledge as to the do's and the don'ts in case of fires. fires or any other emergencies.
I think it's so important that you talked about that, arming people with the knowledge. You and those around you have been campaigning, letting people know, don't use candles without keeping your eyes on them. Don't leave children at home with unsupervised fires. Don't make sure, or rather, don't have electrical outlets that you know are not safe and continuing to use them. Have you been seeing people coming to you saying, you know what, I've been following what you've been saying, Commissioner. I've been following what the fire department has been saying. And has that then been something that you believe contributed to this reduction that you're seeing?
Excellent point. Yes. So one of the things that we have also focused our attention on is really our schools, our institutions, because we believe starting with the youngsters is a good place to start. Once we educate the children, we know, because a lot of times we see fires occurring in their homes. It's because children are sometimes left on their own, as you rightly pointed out. And not only are they left on their own, but matches, lighters, these things are sometimes left in their reach. And they are very much inquisitive and want to experiment. And so they will use these things to see how they work. And next thing you know, there's a fire. So arming these kids, we started in the primary schools, we're in the high schools. Last year, we trained close to 1,000 fire wardens in schools. And so while the training was geared towards the institutions, we know that they will take this knowledge home, Jodi, and they will apply that in their homes as well. You're right, we have been using whatever means that are available to us to educate the public, to include our social media pages. But the critical component for us in all of this is our ability to go into some of the high-risk communities, meet the folks where they are, speak to them, educate them, arm them with the information, such as basic information in terms of even disposing of garbage. Instead of you burning the garbage, why don't you package it to allow the NSWA to come and collect it? Farmers who sometimes slash and burn to clear lands to farm, we have been working with them closely, especially those in St. Elizabeth and up in the hills of St. Andrew. And we have seen a reduction in some fires in these areas, but house fires is where deaths generally occurred. And while we are very much buoyed by the news of this 30% reduction, we still believe that there is still a lot of work to be done, because we still are process making what we consider to be human error in terms of what should they do in case of a fire. So we had an incident last year which comes really to mind, where a gentleman left a burning building. He was able to get his family out, but he went back in for whatever reason, and he lost his life in that fire. And we have seen this happening every now and then, and so we want to encourage persons that once you leave a burning building, because the most important thing is to get out and get out safely, because you have very limited time in today's in terms of the environment that we live in now. What do I mean by that? 15, 20 years ago, you have probably about 12, 15 minutes to get out of a burning building, right? And that was due mainly to the material that we used to use to construct houses then, and also our furniture. What we have now is that a lot of the furniture that are in our houses are synthetic materials.
And therefore highly flammable and will spread the fire much more quickly, giving you much less time. So you can't be overconfident in this time. And you did speak about that reduction that you had seen, a horrific case that you were able to recall for us last year with that man losing his life. But the reality of getting out of a building is that you have less and less time, and therefore being overconfident is not something that you want to encourage, especially as you're seeing that reduction. 2025, you said 30%, 29.6% technically, but I will allow you the 30%, Commissioner Beckford, of reduction in fire-related deaths. 2024, you saw a 15% reduction in fire-related deaths. You're keeping the momentum, you're doubling it every single year. This is certainly something, though, that as we watch this, we want to know what else you want to tell us about, because operational pressure is still on you. You've had bushfires increase 26.2% from 4,523 to 5,710 incidents last year. So while you're keeping people alive in their homes, that slash and burn, that sort of going out and starting fires or extreme heat starting fires is also something that the Jamaica Fire Brigade has to deal with.
Exactly. So climate change is real. It's upon us, and we are seeing the effects here in Jamaica. For the last 5 years, we have seen a steady increase in the bushfire count that we are receiving in terms of calls, and we are seeing some of these incidents occurring in divisions, parishes, as you refer to them as, where we didn't have incidents occurring before, but because of the extended drought periods that we have been experiencing year over year, where each year seems to be hotter than the year before, then we are seeing more of these incidents cropping up. And so, excuse me, our aim really is to make sure that operationally we are prepared to take on this new challenge, because it is going to remain, it will remain with us for some time. And so again, education is a key here, and our farmers and our NGOs, and other stakeholders who have a similar interest as ours, we will continue to work closely with them to make sure that we manage this this issue that we are now seeing in terms of the magnitude of the bushfires that we are seeing, the numbers that we are seeing each year. It poses a significant operational risk to the fire brigade, but it also poses a threat to life and property, and property here include farmlands. We have seen in the past acres being damaged in places like St. Elizabeth, for farmers losing millions and millions of dollars as a result of wildland fires. So we know that we have some work to do in that regard, and we'll continue our public education campaign targeting our farmers and of course other persons who we know are maybe at fault in terms of starting some of these fires. Because one of the issues we have too as well, a lot of what we are seeing in terms of bushfires are occurring along the highways. So we have two main highways, right? East, west, north, south. And what we are seeing is that while the interland of these parishes, so the St. Catherine, the St. Clarendon, has been opened up, we see people doing, subsistence farming as well. But one of the main concerns for us is persons who are driving in their cars and they may be smoking, whatever it is they are smoking, and they discard the leftover of that. Just wind the car window down and
flick it through the window and not be concerned about the consequences, especially for the Jamaica Constabulary or the Jamaica Fire Brigade and others who have to then go on those highways and out those fires. Before we go, Commissioner Beckford, I can't leave without asking how your members are doing. I can't, because you have made it very clear that the well-being of your members and the fire personnel is your priority. You spoke to us after Hurricane Melissa, saying that so many of them had been displaced, lost their homes, that were still out helping and protecting Jamaicans. Can you give us an update as at February 2026, how your people are doing?
Well, I must commend them, and it was remiss of me not to have started by thanking them for their continued support throughout the last year into this year. I tell you, we are a very resilient bunch, and we continue to turn up to duties every single day. We continue to respond to the motor vehicle crashes, the fire calls, the rescue operations, the chemical spill, and all of that. So they are recovering slowly. I have been in touch with them. I've been on the ground with them. We are making efforts to help them to rebuild where possible, to re-roof where possible. And I must put in a plug here in terms of Corporate Jamaica, who has come out and have lent some support to what we are doing, those initiatives. But they're hanging in there. We have been providing them with support in many different ways, to include psychosocial support, which is very, very, very important at this time, because to them, immediately after the passage of the hurricane, you could hear the pain, you could feel the pain, it was just palpable. What they were experiencing. But as I said, they have turned things around, and they're back out in their numbers, continuing to do what they do best, which is to serve the people of Jamaica.
And what service they give us, a 29.6% reduction in fire-related deaths, coming on the heels of a reduction the year before, a 15% reduction, and making sure that even as they go through their own heartbreaking stories coming out of Hurricane Melissa, they show up for us. Commissioner Beckford of the Jamaica Fire Brigade, always on the ground pointing out what is going on for the benefit of your men and women who serve with you, but also helping Jamaica stay safe and keep our babies and our adults safe during fires. Thanks so much for joining us once again inside Lead Story.
Pleasure was all mine. Thanks for having me again.
Thank you. Now, it's an important conversation for us to have, and we're glad to have had that with you, bringing you that good news from the Jamaica Fire Brigade. Next up, light is back. St. Elizabeth got light back, electricity back after Hurricane Melissa. What a set of excited people. We've seen them cheering. Now we'll talk about what it means to be in the dark for so long and finally see the light. We'll talk about that next here inside Lead Story.
Tired of your vision playing hide and seek? Optical Solutions International will help you see eye to eye with clarity again. Enjoy your free eye examination, plus a wide range of eyewear options. Take advantage of our fast professional services and affordable prices. Call 876-649-0203 and find us across Jamaica. Optical Solutions International Limited, fashion for your face.
Welcome to What a Guan. Now, What a Guan is CVMTV's new Vox Pop program, Vibes Yes Vox Pop program. Hey Jamaica, you're watching What a Guan.
What a Guan.
Coming to you from Montego Bay.
Hello, my people.
What a Guan is back. The People's Program is back in full force on CVMTV.
What a Guan. That a Guan. Cross.
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winfred Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVMTV.
So much more than entertainment.
Let there be light. That's what we're talking about today, because for months, large parts of St. Elizabeth lived without electricity, affecting safety, business, schools, and health services. Power now has been restored. Could you live without light for 3 months? Hello, not me. But recovery is about more than switching the lights back on. Joining me from Treasure Beach is a chairman of Jake's Hotel and Bread's Treasure Beach Foundation, Jason Hensel. Thanks so much for joining us inside Lead Story, Jason. Oh, you're muted, Jason, as you're talking to me about what's going on there. Unmute yourself and talk to us, because we saw you there cheering, as I said, let there be light. And we certainly want to. There you go. You're back with us.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, Jason Hensel. What a beautiful sight behind you to have electricity.
I'm in a very good friend's villa called Rainbow Tree in Billy's Bay, Treasure Beach. Victoria and Eric Elliott. These persons, are the visitors to the area for over 35 years, and they bought this villa. It's one of the best investments they've ever made. And I tell you, they have been incredible stakeholders with this through thick and thin. And I have to tell you that having electricity restored in this area was a game changer for us. We would have seen the Minister of Energy Mr. Darrell Vaz working so closely with JPS and Hugh Grant and his team. Initially they would have put a generator with a high voltage step-up transformer into the parking lot of Jack Sprat, and that would have initially given Treasure Beach and 800 residents power for a period of about a month to 6 weeks, and then we were actually switched over to Magati. So it's really a pleasure to see all of these additional workers coming from Canada and America, working along with the JPS linesmen to getting power restored across the parish. We're still having some outages. It's not perfect, but God knows that, 4 months after a Category 5 hurricane, we feel as though we've made tremendous progress. And I really want to salute the entire JPS team, Darrell Vaz and his ministry, and just everybody who has made this possible, including the linesmen who came from abroad.
I think it's so good that you've been able to shout out effectively all the people who would have been involved in this process for the restoration of power there in St. Elizabeth. But on social media, we saw people cheering, going outside, shaking.
Yeah.
When I was talking about let there be light, the viewers couldn't see, but your hands are up. You were cheering as well. 3 months, 4 months, effectively without power. What did that really mean for daily life and for business in St. Elizabeth?
We really advocated very hard for Treasure Beach being the home of community tourism, and the fact that JPS coming in would have given us a multiplier effect, because the tourist season was coming, wanted to repair their business. Even if it wasn't 100% back, we were really encouraging people to just do what they could to, even if you're 50% open, it's better than being closed, just for your morale. People want to come and support you. People want to share the journey with you, quite frankly. So, we've seen the reopening of Lover's Leap. We've seen the reopening of Pelican Bar. We've seen the reopening of YS Falls. And right now it's just Appleton Estate that we're waiting on to reopen. And I think they're going to be sometimes in the next probably 2 to 3 weeks. The Black River Safari is open. Most of the villas and guest houses in Treasure Beach are open. Through our foundation breads, we're very pleased that we have distributed over $66 million worth of vouchers, whether it be farming vouchers, fishing wire, assistance to tourism workers, grants to small businesses. We're making a difference. Of course, there's always more to be done. Just on Saturday, we did a survey of boats that were damaged and engines in the Parity area. But it's just tremendous to see the solidarity, the collaboration between American NGOs. Some are religious, some are not. World Central Kitchen, of course, GEM, have been doing an unbelievable job. The American Friends of Jamaica, my friend Wendy Hart, Andrew Mafood from Food for the Poor. Samaritan's Purse.
So you're getting a lot of support then, because they recognize that buildings are not enough. People's livelihoods are also built into the idea that these businesses are closed and life has changed there in St. Elizabeth. Now that electricity is back, what changes immediately in terms of safety though? Commerce and community morale, because electricity being back is not only a household thing, it's also everybody else feeling now a little safer, it seems, with the lights on.
Absolutely. Through our foundation, again, we were able to buy 100 solar street lights. This is before the electricity came back, and we're going to be buying more of those. People do feel safer when their lights are on. I think these NGOs have come on board because they feel the Jamaican spirit is so strong and so grateful. You just hear stories every single day of how resilient people are, how strong they are, how they kind of had to lean on each other, and how people have been there to support each other in their time of need. And yes, there's been some tremendous loss. People have passed away because of trauma and heartbreak. I feel it really particularly for the older people. But just earlier today, the Rita Marley Foundation called me to say that they want to do something with the Black River Hospital. and for the workers, the healthcare workers there and everyone.
One of the hardest hit healthcare facilities on the island, and they stayed there in the middle of the hurricane too. So they were a focal point for many people during the hurricane.
I just want you to imagine you're in a 2-story hospital, and if you stay downstairs, you may be flooded out. If you go upstairs, the roof is going to be torn off. I mean, the healthcare workers of the Black River Hospital, honest to God, I take my hat off to them. Like they're the soldiers of our country. They are the heroes, the unsung heroes, and we have to find a way to honor them. So when the Rita Marley Foundation reached out today to say that they were going to do something for those workers, we immediately jumped on board and said this has to happen because, we see the need, but, we also see the change that is coming, and you have to put it in context of the fact that this is the most powerful hurricane that has ever come through the Caribbean. And, 4 months later, we're probably 95% electricity restored, water is restored, and people are getting their lives back together. And we really have to focus on the micro and small businesses, things like, the farmers, the fishermen, the small businesses. How do we get those engines of growth going back in our rural economy?
And I think that is incredibly important that you're highlighting that, Jason Hensel, because as we look and celebrate what's going on there in St. Elizabeth with electricity coming back, we can't think this is the end of restoration or the end of the story. But really, we wanted to celebrate with you there in St. Elizabeth and down on Treasure Reach.
On Christmas night from my veranda, I saw the lights come up in Black River, and I swear to God, it was a very emotional period of time to see that happen on Christmas evening.
And I think that would be so important for many people as well as they were dealing with the losses from Hurricane Melissa, but also then the restoration work that they're now able to see in full in February. Jason Hensel, CEO of Jake's Hotel and Chairman of Bread's Treasure Beach Foundation. Thank you so very much for joining us.
Have a nice evening.
Inside Lead Story. Good to have you here as well with us. Now, for the whole show, we talked about accountability, and accountability is not just a buzzword. It's a difference between safety and fair, between trust and suspicion, between systems that fail and systems that save lives. Tonight, we saw all sides of that reality. That is the story. I'm Jodi-Ann Quarry, and on behalf of the entire CVM production team, thank you for watching Lead Story. Have a fantastic evening, and I hope you stay safe. Up next, CVM News.